Traditionally, Black Friday has been the kickoff for the Christmas retail season, but Gen Z are fundamentally challenging the future of Black Friday. Let's understand why. Hi, my name is Ken Hughes. Welcome back to the channel. This Thursday is Thanksgiving, a holiday that was celebrated 400 years ago when the pilgrims from Europe sat down with the Wampanoag tribe of Native Americans and they shared a feast, a harvest, turkey, pumpkin pie. Sadly, they also shared influenza and smallpox and decimated the indigenous population. Of course, what happened afterwards was a genocide, a land grab, violence, and in fact, interestingly, a lot of the Native Americans don't celebrate Thanksgiving. They see it as a remembrance day of mourning. They, in fact, some of them call it the Thanks-taking. But 400 years later, the same thing kind of happens. Families will meet, they will invade each other's space, they will give each other the flu, and they will argue over old tensions. So not much has changed, really. But what is interesting about Thanksgiving is Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Black Friday traditionally, of course, has been the kickoff for the Christmas retail season. And it's really interesting to look at how it's changed over the years and how really the question, is it fit for purpose for the future as the future consumer, Gen Z and Gen Alpha rise? Is that holiday retail season fit for purpose? So Black Friday's history is around it's probably 70 years old. Dates from in Philadelphia where people would gather for the Army and Navy game. The streets would be black with people shopping, and that's where the name comes from. And traditionally it has been, as I said, the kickoff for the retail Christmas period. But the switch over from a physical sale to online is really, really interesting to look in. So I think there's a couple of things I want to look at from a Gen Z perspective, because Gen Z is one of the biggest population cores we have in the world. Gen Z and Gen Alpha actually account for 47% of the world's population. And by 2030, Gen Z particularly will be responsible for about 12 trillion worth of consumer spending. So between them, Gen Z and Gen Alpha really are the future of your brand, absolutely. And when you look at how Black Friday is changing and the influence that generation, particularly Gen Z, are having on it, it really is kind of a foreshadowing of the future of the retail landscape for everybody. So I want to jump into kind of 5 things that I think are really interesting to look at in terms of the shifts of behavior of Gen Z relating to Black Friday and how that kind of foretells what is going to happen in retail. The first one, of course, is the fact that it's no longer a sale day. Black Friday used to be this particular sale day. People would rush, they would queue in the small hours of the morning, they would rush the shutters. There was this chaos in the store. It was a physical, it was nearly like a sport. It was a physical thing that you did, you went to the sales. And what's really interesting is it's no longer a single day. It's now like a cyber season. And the reason for this is because Gen Z, let's face it, spend a lot of the time on their devices. It's an always-on consumer, an always-on shopper. They're always in their socials, they're always in TikTok, they're always in Instagram, they're always swiping, they're always looking at shopping. They're never not a shopper. And because of that, really, the season, this idea that there's a one sale day is kind of broken because they're interfacing with brands at a regular basis. And they're much more deal savvy as a generation. And the reason they're deal savvy is because they actually have a lower income when adjusted for inflation than their millennial counterparts would have had 10 years ago. And so they have less disposable incomes. They're more deal savvy, and because of all the time they're spent on devices, they're always looking at prices, they're always looking at shopping. And the new addition of buy now, pay later function in a lot of apps is there particularly for the Gen Z generation because they're kind of a bit debt averse. They don't like credit card debt like their previous, again, millennial counterparts, but they're happy to buy now and pay less. So they want the stuff, but they don't want the debt. And so they are more price conscious. And because they're more price conscious, this idea of just a one-day sale doesn't really suit them because actually they're looking at things much longer, for weeks and months, looking at various things. So we've seen this big stretch out from the 4-day holiday season to really kind of the whole of October. Those shoppers are already looking online at the products they might want. So the real stretching out of the promotional cycle. The second thing is the digital dominance that now exists in the world of retail, but particularly around the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. So back in 2019, the ratio of online versus physical store was about 40% online, 60% physical store. So physical store was still the dominant channel. always for Black Friday. As I said, the Olympic sport, the Hunger Games of trying to get the things that you wanted in the store. And obviously 2020, when COVID hit, there was a switchover because the stores were closed and stores weren't somewhere people wanted to go to. So of course online rose. But what's interesting, if you look at the graph afterwards, 2022, 23, 24, the last 3 years, we've seen the rise of online. Online never went away. And now the 60-40 thing is reversed. Where basically 60% of all the traffic over those 4 days will be online e-commerce and only 40% will be in the store, predicted for 2025. And so with that switchover and that digital dominance, you have to realize that really it's a digital first landscape we now live in. And for Gen Z, they very much live on their devices and everything starts digitally first. What's really interesting is if you look at the e-commerce spend last year from 2024 of this 4-day holiday retail weekend, 80% of all the e-commerce traffic originated on a mobile device. And that is primarily driven by the Gen Z generation. In fact, 90% of all e-commerce interactions with Gen Z came from a mobile device. And so it's a mobile first retail landscape that we now live in, and you have to play into that. You have to have a strong game on TikTok. You have to have a strong game on social shopping. Any app or interface with the brand on digital has to have a very simple one-click immediate mobile checkout. It's all got to be seamless and frictionless. That's really, really important for this next generation. If you don't play that game, you fade away. So Black Friday, that whole weekend has changed from a physical sport to really an online piece. And in fact, Cyber Monday is the biggest day still for online e-commerce. And so there's still a peak in terms of people doing that deal shopping online on that last day of the holiday. Now, the third thing is interesting is the skepticism that Gen Z have around the whole Black Friday idea, that discounts are only inflated, retailers are inflating their prices to then discount them once again. And this is evident for them because remember, because they're online always and because they're always shopping, this generation have a big investment in wish lists and saved baskets. So because they're price sensitive, they're continuously adding things to baskets, adding things to wish lists as they play on their phones at 2 a.m. And so because of that, they are already aware of the price of various things for the last 4 weeks, for the last 4 months. And so when you bring a sale price to the market for Black Friday, they can clearly see it's not a sale price, that it's the same as previous. In fact, Which magazine in the UK, the consumer group, did a survey and they saw that in the UK, 9 out of 10 Black Friday deals were either cheaper or the same price before the discounted price was brought to market. And this is very much spoken about online. It's a thing that Gen Z are aware of. And so that kind of frenzy around pricing for Black Friday and Cyber Monday doesn't really exist for them anymore because they don't believe it. There's a skepticism there about it. And so it's really important to be very transparent in what you're bringing to market now. And that really feeds into the fourth one, which is about value-driven consumerism. And so for Gen Z and Gen Alpha beneath them, values-driven brands are key. And yes, everyone wants a discount, everyone wants a good deal, but they're not going to sacrifice that for a brand that they don't believe in, for a brand that they don't want to invite into their lives, that they don't want to align their values with. And so ethical sourcing, sustainability, diversity, social responsibility, all these things are still really important to Gen Z. And they won't necessarily sacrifice those things just for a deal. I mean, sometimes they will, but they really want both things together. And so it's not just about price and flashy stickers and yellow and red markdowns. For them, it's still about interfacing with brands that have some kind of value. And the last one, the fifth one, is the phygital reality. So yes, online's booming and it's really important. It's going to get bigger and bigger. But of course, physical stores still have a role. But what role do they have? What is the role of store? And this is one of the questions that I'm asked regularly by my retail customers all over the world, the clients, like what is the purpose of our 2,000 stores now? What are they for? And for Gen Z, particularly around this holiday weekend, there's two things. The store is a pickup point. So I've already maybe researched online, I've watched all the haul videos, I've watched the live stream, retail, so all the entertainment stuff's already happened online. All the search, the discovery, the engagement. And actually the store might just be the pickup point. It might be the place I go to conveniently collect the product rather than have it delivered. Or the store is the experiential space. The store is the showroom. The store is the place where I get to interface with product, with community, with brand community, meet others like me. And so really it's not just a warehouse of a place where I'm going to do my discovery, because most of the discovery, this is the important part, most of the discovery of brands and retail and pricing and product is done online. The store is only maybe a reference point, a final check, a touch and feel, a brand community space. And so the game is very much a mobile game today. And so you have to think about, well, what is the purpose of the store then in this reality? So those 5 things, the idea that firstly, it's not just a 4-day weekend, it's kind of a whole month of promotional calendars, the cyber stretch across the whole of October into November. Then there's the idea that this is a low-income savvy consumer, and they want to understand the pricing. They're looking at saved baskets at wishlist continuously. They're skeptical about those deals. They're mobile first. The store is an experiential space. All those things are reshaping how retail works, and they're fundamentally reshaping Black Friday as a holiday season. But for you as a brand, you need to understand that this generation, Gen Z, will make or break every industry. While the 12 trillion spending is still 4 years away, as they enter the workforce, the disposable income is getting higher and higher and higher. And if you click Gen Alpha and Gen Z together, which is the future of all consumers on this planet, they will fundamentally reshape every brand, every business, including yours. Happy holidays.